Right, so the story of Music in Mind, so we'll begin off by looking at where music therapy sits in the health service. So at the minute it is still very much in the margins, and the importance of randomised controlled trials, or RCTs, you know, for getting it more mainstream. And then looking at what the literature says in terms of difficulties with recruitment, the challenges that we faced, and some practical examples of how we overcame those challenges, to leave everybody with some transferable lessons for those who wish to engage further with music therapy research. Oh, sorry, I'm too quick. So in terms of the importance of RCTs, there's an ever increasing dominance for evidence-based practice approaches in the healthcare service. So the contribution of allied health professions is increasingly being judged by the evidentiary criteria. And while there is a wide body of knowledge attesting, you know, to the importance of music therapy for a whole range of healthcare problems, that evidence is still weak in some areas. And then this creates a vicious cycle where we need clinicians to engage in research to meet recruitment targets. And if the research isn't there to convince people, you know, that this is going to work, then it also hampers then in terms of recruitment for large-scale RCTs. So if we look at what the literature says, of 114 trials carried out in the UK health and social care setting, over half required an extension to the recruitment period, and less than a third actually met the recruitment target. And then looking specifically at music therapy, there's also wide recruitment difficulties there as well, even for small-scale pilot and exploratory studies. So the next few slides will look just at some of the challenges, and like I say, how we dealt with those. So starting from the beginning, we knew it was going to be crucial to remind and motivate healthcare practitioners to take part, and, you know, to remind them to mention the trial. So there were a number of strategies suggested and put in place at different referral sites, and these ranged from putting reminders at the top of patient charts and putting referral packs in, and then also highlighting the trial. And then really importantly, I have to stress the importance of having the admin staff on site. They were absolutely invaluable to putting these strategies in place. And as Karen said earlier, chocolate always does help. And we have to remember that clinicians, they're already very busy with their own workload, and asking them to take part in research, it is a big ask of them in terms of, you know, putting extra work on top of what they have to do. So remember to support them. So things like making sure there were always referral packs in place, offering assistance, whether it be in terms of going through the referral process, or even going over a young person's eligibility. And then highlighting the trial. So we put posters up in the waiting areas and handed out information leaflets to parents and young people when they came to their appointments. And this worked in two ways, in that when the young people and the parents went into their appointments, they already had an awareness of what the trial was about, and very often they went in and actually brought the trial up. And this is just an example of the posters that we put around the referral sites. And very often, even when I was going out to see the young people, I would sometimes said to them, you know, well, how did you hear about the trial? They said, well, we saw the poster and it got our attention and we went in and we talked about it. So this was one really good strategy to use. And then we also distributed newsletters every month. So again, reminding and encouraging the teams to refer, letting them know where we were in terms of referrals. And then we also put in a couple of quotes from our top referrers. And again, you can see it was really highlighting how much young people enjoyed taking part and how easy the referral process was. And then we followed this up with weekly emails, and again highlighting how many referrals had went through the previous week. And really importantly, towards the end, reminding everybody how little time we had left and the importance of keeping referrals up, and then thanking everybody. And one of the things we noticed was when we actually started naming who had referred, this got a bit of a competitive streak going. So again, some of the things that work you find out by trial and error itself. But even with all of these efforts, we did still struggle to meet the recruitment target. While we had predicted we would be finished in March 2013, we had to extend by 18 months to October of this year. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get used to this yet. So this made us question, what was going on? Why were the difficulties with recruitment? Was the population sample just not enough? But this wasn't the case. There's 340 young people attend CAMS each year, so that works out about 28 per month. So assuming 65% of those young people are eligible and willing to take part, we anticipated that we would get 18 referrals per month. But when we look at this table, we can actually see we were getting a lot less than what we had anticipated. So our first challenge was to try and get to the bottom of this, what was going on. And we did have some anecdotal feedback that parents and young people felt, well, if they were assigned to the control group, they were given of their time for very little reward. So we put in place a £15 multi-store gift card, and this seemed to work in that the young people really liked the idea of this. But we discovered pretty quickly that this was working more in terms of retention, keeping young people in the trial and actually keeping recruitment up. If we look at this graph, when the voucher was introduced, we can see a small immediate effect, but it wasn't sustained. So again, the challenge was to think, what is going on? So we went back and spoke with Lord in heaven. We went back and spoke to healthcare practitioners, and then we realised they also had concerns that if young people are assigned to the control group, that they would be very disappointed. Now this presented a dilemma in terms of the study design, a randomised control trial that requires a comparison group. So the Northern Ireland Music Therapy Trust invested even further in the research by offering a short course of music therapy to the young people in the control group when they had finished their time in the trial. And we can see again that when this was introduced, referrals did increase again. Now there's a part here where there was no referrals from October till December. At that time there was a change over in research personnel, so referrals weren't being picked up at that time. But then even when there was research personnel in place, we can see that referrals dropped again over July, August and September of that year. So this left us with a challenge of how do we re-engage healthcare practitioners and get them involved again, to prevent this continuing drop in referrals. So we decided to take a top-down approach. So we contacted and met with senior monitors of each of the sites just to highlight our concerns that if referrals kept dropping, we wouldn't meet our recruitment target. And then we followed this up with monthly updates again, just to let them know where we were in terms of recruitment and to keep them engaged with our efforts. And we can see after this, referrals did increase again. And it was quite a dramatic increase actually, from 5 on average per month until 18 on average per month. But we do have to remember that we're dealing with real world research, so even with the best of efforts, there are many reasons why healthcare practitioners do not refer. And one of the main things cited was just in terms of eligibility. Sometimes the young people were either below the age of 8 or older than 16. And then we have to remember too, we're dealing with a very vulnerable patient group, so it's difficult to get them to engage in anything new at times. So we've focused so far on all the challenges, but I think there's many important lessons to learn from why practitioners did refer. We had a few top referrers who were just so invaluable to the trial and so supportive. And we can see from the feedback that we got that when practitioners see the value of the research to the young people and also to their service, it's a really, really good motivating factor. So in terms of taking away some lessons from what we have learned, when practitioners see that the young people really enjoy the research, again, like I said, it is a motivating factor, and then having senior monitor support. So really harnessing that support from the very beginning and trying to maintain that the whole way through is really important. So I'll leave it there.